In a medieval castle, one mistake could get a servant whipped or mutilated. Yet without them, the whole fortress would collapse. Congratulations, you live in a castle. Sounds badass, right? Towering walls, armored knights, feasts with roasted boar. Yeah, except you're not sitting at the table. You're under it, crawling with a rag in your hand, trying to mop up spilled ale before the Lord notices. Because you're not a knight. You're not a lady. You're the servant. Your room? Don't imagine a cozy little chamber with a fireplace. Picture a dim box, maybe in the servant's wing, maybe crammed in an outbuilding, stuffed with other exhausted bodies. The air stinks of damp wool and sweat. You sleep on a pallet stuffed with straw that crunches like old leaves, and if you're lucky, the lice only nibble at your ankles instead of your scalp. The rooster crows, but you're already up. Why? Because if the fires in the great hall aren't lit before dawn, you're in deep shit. So before the nobles even dream about yawning, you're out fetching water from the well, lugging buckets so heavy the handles burn grooves into your palms. And here's the kicker. Drop one, spill one, or show up late, and nobody shrugs it off. They beat that mistake out of you. Your first real task, scrub. Always scrubbing. Stone floors caked with dirt, tables sticky with grease, chamber pots brimming with piss and worse. That's on you. And the smell, good luck ever washing it out of your clothes. Not that you own many. Your tunic is coarse wool, itchy as hell, dyed in whatever dull color they had lying around. Forget wardrobe. You wear the same thing until it rots off your back. And food? Don't dream about the roast swan glistening on the Lord's table. You get bread so hard you could knock out a rat with it. Thin stew called pottage. Maybe salted fish if it's your lucky day. Nobles feast, you gnaw. And you pray the bread isn't moldy, because if it is, guess what? You eat it anyway. Now here's the brutal truth nobody wants to admit. The castle is basically a human pyramid, and you're standing at the very bottom, getting crushed by everyone above you. Sure, there are levels of servants. Some guy in a nice hat, the steward barks orders but never touches a mop. Skilled cooks or craftsmen might earn wages and respect. And then there's you, the disposable labor. No name, no rank, just hands, a back, and endless work. It's not just about chores, it's about survival. The steward leans in, eyes sharp, voice low. Keep your head down. Work hard. Don't dream too high. That's the advice. That's the theme of your whole damn life. Stay invisible. Stay obedient. Because castles run on obedience the way a hearth runs on wood.
Here's the kicker. You don't get to climb. People fantasize about it, sure. Maybe the Lord notices you. Maybe you rise a little. Maybe you get rewarded. But the truth, most servants die right where they started. Dirty, poor, and nameless. Social mobility is a fantasy sold by the same system that breaks your back. And let's be honest, the castle isn't glamorous up close. It's loud, crowded, and filthy. Summer, you're sweating, hauling water, choking on smoke. Winter, your fingers go numb, hauling firewood. Your nose drips and your breath fogs in the freezing kitchens. Every season just brings a new way to be miserable. Even the animals get better treatment than you sometimes. Horses, groomed, fed, pampered, combed till their coats shine. You're in rags, shivering, smelling like smoke and sweat. And don't think for a second you're important. Horses are worth more coin than your life. Disease is everywhere. The guy snoring beside you might cough himself to death by next week, and you'll still have to wake up and scrub the floors around his empty spot. You get scabies, rashes, fevers. Nobody cares. Unless you die near the food, in which case they'll drag your body out faster than a tipped chamber pot. And here's the twisted irony. You're trapped inside these mighty stone walls, but you're not safe. Not from the lords, not from disease, not even from hunger. The walls aren't protecting you. They're just keeping you in. But here's the part nobody tells you in history class. The castle isn't just a fortress. It's a stage. Every feast, every trial, every battle plan, all of it is powered by invisible hands like yours. You set the fire that warms the Lord. You scrub the plates that hold his meat. You shovel the shit of the horse that carries him to war. You're the ghost in the castle machine, unseen but essential. And still, if you vanish tomorrow, nobody writes your name down. You're not in the records. You're not in the songs. You're just another pair of blistered hands lost to time. So when you drag your bucket across the courtyard at dawn, when your stomach growls because you skipped bread to keep your Lord's table stacked high, when you bite your tongue because talking back means a beating, that's your world. That's your before picture. This is your life as a castle servant, unseen, unthanked, and unfree. But wait, this isn't even the worst of it. You think back-breaking work is bad? Just wait until the castle turns into a trap, when war, disease, and punishment come crashing down. You're not ready for that part yet.
You think your life in the castle is just endless scrubbing and hauling. Wrong. The real terror isn't the routine, it's when the routine explodes. Because every so often, the world outside barges in and wrecks everything you thought was predictable. Maybe it starts with a horn echoing across the courtyard. A new lord is riding in, banners snapping, horses kicking mud. Suddenly, the steward's barking at you to scrub harder, polish faster, stand straighter. You thought you had a tough boss yesterday? Wait until this one decides half of you are too slow and makes an example out of someone. And by example, I mean public whipping. Yeah, welcome to new management. Or picture this. The messenger arrives, dust on his cloak, breathless. War's coming. Just like that, your broom gets swapped for a shovel. You're hauling stones to reinforce walls, dragging barrels of salted fish into the cellar, sharpening spears until your fingers blister. You thought you were safe inside the walls? Guess again, you're now a cog in a war machine. And here's the kicker. If you're strong enough to lift a sword, they might drag you to the battlefield. Servant or not, your body's just another resource. And if it's not war, maybe it's worse. Disease. The cough starts in the laundry room. Within days, 3 people are gone. The stench of sickness clings to the corridors, and you're told to carry up the dead before they rot in their pallets. You try not to breathe through your nose, but good luck. Death has a smell you can't block. And you're not just terrified of catching it, you're terrified of who's left. Because with half the staff gone, you'll be pulling double the weight. No one says thank you, they just hand you another bucket. Or maybe it's not death, it's royalty. You think a royal visit is exciting? No, it's hell. Suddenly, you're scrubbing every corner that hasn't been touched in years, baking bread until your arms ache, hauling firewood like you're stoking the gates of hell itself. And God help you if the king spots a cobweb. Off with their head isn't just a phrase, it's motivation. This is the castle's dirty secret. Peace is fragile, and every event means your life spins out. Feasts, wars, plagues, it doesn't matter. You're the one getting crushed under the weight of it.
And now the question hits you. What do you do? Do you keep your head down, bite your tongue, and hope to survive? Or do you push back, gamble everything, and risk the Lord's wrath? Because some servants snap. They whisper in corners, mutter about unfair taxes, curse the steward under their breath. You've heard the stories. 1381, when peasants marched with pitchforks, torching nanners, demanding freedom. Imagine the rush, finally yelling back after years of silence. But you've also heard what happened next. Reprisals, gallows, heads on spikes. The message is clear. Open your mouth too wide and you'll lose more than your job. So you debate with yourself while hauling slop across the courtyard. You want to resist, but the fear eats you alive. You picture your body swinging from the castle gate. You picture your mother starving if you're thrown out. You picture the steward's stick cracking across your shoulders. And maybe you mutter, "Not today." You keep scrubbing. Because sometimes silence is the only shield you've got. But here's the twist. Not everyone stays silent. Some servants pivot. They take the chaos and turn it into opportunity. War breaks out. Suddenly, you're not just carrying water, you're delivering messages between knights, sneaking through enemy lines. It's dangerous, but the Lord trusts you now. A royal visit? Maybe you're the one pouring wine at the king's table, close enough to overhear secrets. Disease wipes out half the staff. Guess who's promoted? Because there's no one else left standing. And here's the brutal irony. The same walls that trap you can also push you into roles way above your station. You're still a servant, sure, but now you're handling weapons, secrets, even life and death decisions. Nobody writes about it, but it happened. Servants turned into spies, messengers, even escape planners during sieges. You were supposed to be invisible. Suddenly, you're indispensable. And this is your breaking point. The moment you step out of being just a faceless drudge. It's risky. Every move could get you punished, exposed, even killed. But doing nothing means drowning in endless labor until your body gives out. So you take the leap. You decide, better to gamble on danger than rot in silence.
And that's the snap into your new world. No more just scrubbing and carrying. Now you're in the game, playing roles you were never meant to touch. It feels upside down. The cook becomes a quartermaster for soldiers. The stable boy runs messages through battle lines. The laundry girl sneaks letters for the steward. You're still serving, but it's a different kind of service. One where your mistakes echo far louder than a dirty floor. The old life is gone. The quiet routine, dead. From here on, it's survival in chaos, and the castle will never look the same again. You're not alone in this castle. You never were. Every hallway, every smoky kitchen, every freezing stable, it's crowded with others just like you. And here's the truth. Your survival doesn't just depend on lords and masters. It depends on them. The ones scrubbing beside you, stealing scraps with you, whispering secrets when no one else dares. Maybe it's a mentor, that old kitchen hand with calloused fingers who shows you how to dodge the steward's gaze, how to slip food into your pocket without getting flogged. They've been beaten down, but they know the game. Keep your head down, but never your ears, they mutter while chopping onions. It's not kindness, it's survival training. And without it, you'd already be broken. Or maybe it's a friend, someone your age running through corridors with the same raw mix of exhaustion and rage. You laugh together when the Lord's dog pisses on his shoes. You cover for each other when one oversleeps. That bond is more than friendship. It's oxygen. Because when your world is nothing but orders and bruises, someone whispering, "Me too," can feel like a rebellion. But not every bond is safe. Rivals are everywhere. Another servant eyeing the same scraps of favor, the same rare chance at promotion. That laundry maid who rats you out just to shine brighter in the steward's eyes. That stable boy who hides your tools so you look slow. In a world this starved, sometimes survival means someone else falls. And when you feel that heat of jealousy or betrayal, it burned worse than hunger. And through it all, you dream. You whisper to your friend, One day I'll leave, work in the town, be free. You imagine marrying someone with coin, buying your way out of servitude, seeing life beyond these walls. But the castle crushes those hopes just as easily as it crushes bones. You're reminded day after day that freedom is a fantasy unless you're born into it. And yet, you dream anyway, because what else keeps you sane? Here's the thing, those bonds, mentor, friend, rival, they shape more than your days. They shape you. They teach you loyalty, caution, resilience, how to bend without breaking, how to fight without showing fists. In the silence of stone halls, in stolen laughter by the fire, you learn what no master can teach, that even in chains, your spirit is still yours. So you've broken into your new world as a castle servant. No more just sweeping floors, you're now tangled in the bigger machine. But this isn't adventure the way stories sell it. It's a grind, endless tasks, each one a skill, a danger, or a humiliation wrapped up in stone walls. If you're stuck in the kitchen, welcome to the sweatbox. The year is 1355, and dinner for the lower staff is the same as yesterday. Bread so hard it cracks your teeth. Pottage, grain boiled with onions or leeks, maybe a slice of salted pork if you're lucky. That's survival food, nothing fancy. But when the Lord throws a feast, that's theater. Suddenly you're following recipes from The Form of Curry, a cookbook actually compiled in 1390 for King Richard II's court. Dishes like spiced venison, almond milk custards, or eel stews. You're sweating over fires, hauling pots so heavy your arms tremble. And you know one mistake means humiliation. Drop a dish, burn a roast, spill sauce on the Lord's tablecloth. Best case, you're whipped. Worst case, you're dismissed. And the feast isn't just about food, it's about power. Nobles use these spreads to flex. Imported spices like cinnamon or ginger scream wealth. A roasted swan or peacock arrives with its feathers reattached for spectacle. Meanwhile, you're starving in the back, sneaking crusts when no one's watching. And don't kid yourself if you're caught. That's theft. Theft means stocks, branding, or worse.
Think medieval castles were glamorous? They stank. Floors were covered in rushes that doubled as trash bins. Spit, bones, piss, everything got dumped there. Your job? Scrub, replace, sweep. You might use sand or ash to scour greasy pans, water buckets to rinse stone floors. You're wading through filth, and no matter how hard you scrub, the stench lingers. Archaeological digs confirm this. Waste pits often sat terrifyingly close to kitchens and sleeping quarters. Translation: everyone's eating and breathing disease. Latrines? Don't get me started. Some castles had garderobes, basically vertical shafts leading to cesspits. Guess who cleaned those? Yeah, you. And if the pit overflows during rain, you're hauling sludge with buckets. You tell yourself it's better than starvation, but halfway through the job, you disagree. If you're on laundry duty, you're pounding sheets and wooden troughs with ash and lye soap until your knuckles bleed. Water's freezing, fabric heavy, and you reek of alkaline. Forget washing every day. Cloth was too expensive. You're maintaining garments and tapestries for nobility, dyeing fabrics with ward for blue or madder for red. Sounds artistic, right? Until you realize the fumes choke you, the dyes stain your skin for days, and if you botch the color, the mistress will happily remind you of the cost with a slap. If you're trusted, maybe you're in the armory. That's a different hell. You're scrubbing rust off mail with sand, polishing breastplates with oil, repairing dents with hammers. Why? Because when war comes, and it always comes, the Lord's armor must gleam. You're not wearing it, you're maintaining it. And a slip here doesn't just mean punishment. If a knight dies because his armor cracked where you failed to patch it, that blood is on you. Imagine that weight every time you run your rag across cold steel. Some get stuck in the stables.
Horses were status symbols, worth more than you'll ever be. Your day is sunrise to dusk, feeding hay, cleaning stalls, grooming coats, checking hooves. You shovel manure until your back seizes up and you still can't slack. A sick horse means lost transport, lost battle edge, lost pride for the Lord. And you don't want to be the servant blamed for a limping posterior when the night rides out. Leisure? Forget it.
Your fun is stolen. Maybe you sing with others while peeling onions. Maybe you trade dirty jokes in the laundry yard. Once in a blue moon, a minstrel plays, and for an hour you forget your sores. On feast days, maybe you slip into the crowd and dance, drink ale, or sneak a bite from the Lord's table scraps. Religion gives you pauses too. Holy days mean processions, masses, candlelight. But don't get it twisted. Festivals also mean more work for you. You're preparing altars, scrubbing halls, hauling food. The only holiday you get is exhaustion in better lighting. Every day carries risk. You slice your hand on a knife. You burn yourself lifting a cauldron. You inhale smoke until your chest rattles. Colds turn to fevers. Fevers turn to graves. Castle infirmaries exist, sure, but mostly for the Lord and his kin. You're patching burns with honey or chewing willow bark for pain. Archaeological data backs this up. Lower-class castle dwellers had shorter life expectancies, riddled with respiratory infections and parasites. It wasn't just hard, it was lethal. This is your roller coaster. Some days you feel the tiniest win, sneaking bread, laughing with friends, dodging the steward's wrath. You learn skills, how to balance 10 dishes without spilling, how to curry a horse without getting kicked, how to whisper alliances in the shadows. Those are survival tricks. They feel like victories. Other days crush you. The Lord's feast goes wrong and you're blamed. A rival servant frames you for theft. A disease sweeps through the barracks and you watch 3 friends die while you're still forced to haul buckets. The castle walls don't protect you, they cage you in the chaos. But here's the kicker. You start to believe you're adapting. You're getting sharper, tougher. You think maybe, just maybe, you're rising. The steward trusts you with more tasks. The mistress nods at you once. You start imagining that dream again. Maybe you're not just a faceless servant anymore. Maybe you're becoming someone. And that's the trap. Because in this world, the moment you think you're winning, that's when the floor drops out. One day, everything shifts. You've been scrubbing, hauling, bowing, surviving, and then, out of nowhere, you're noticed. Maybe the steward calls your name. Maybe the mistress points her finger. Maybe the Lord himself glances your way. That tiny spark, it feels like lightning.
You're handed new duties. Suddenly, you're not just stirring pottage in the smoky kitchen. You're trusted to oversee supplies. You're counting sacks of grain, locking storerooms, checking deliveries from nearby villages. This is huge. For a servant in England around 1360, that's as close as you get to authority. And for one dangerous second, you let yourself think, I've made it. But here's the thing. You're not ready for the punchline. That new responsibility, it paints a target on your back. Other servants whisper, why you, not me? A rival might slip a rotten fish into your stockpile, then point the finger when it's discovered. The steward could decide you miscounted, accuse you of theft, and drag you before the Lord. And theft, in this world, isn't a slap on the wrist. It's shackles, trial, maybe a branding iron pressed into your flesh. You thought you were rising, now you're standing on a trap door. And sometimes the trap springs. Historical records tell us about servants accused of stealing bread, ale, or scraps of meat. Some were whipped, some locked in stocks for villagers to jeer, some banished with nothing but rags. You think your dream of climbing higher will save you? Nope. One accusation and you're dirt again. Or imagine this twist. You've been trusted with the Lord's armor. You polish it until your fingers ache, every dent hammered flat. You start to take pride, thinking, that knight goes to battle because of me. But if he falls, if his breastplate buckles, if his sword breaks, if anything fails, guess whose name gets cursed? Not the smith, not the knight, yours. You carry the blame for blood spilled on the field, and no one remembers you were just the servant. Sometimes the downfall isn't even your fault. Let's say the Lord's wife loses a ring. Instantly, the hall turns into a witch hunt. Who's the easiest suspect? Not the Lord's cousin, not the knight at table. You. Always you. And even if they don't find proof, suspicion lingers. That nod you thought meant trust, it's gone. But the crazy part? You don't walk away. You can't. Because for every false defeat, there's a flicker of false victory too. Maybe you're allowed closer to the Lord's table, pouring wine during dinner. You catch scraps of gossip, whispers of politics, schemes that could change kingdoms. For the first time, you're hearing secrets instead of fetching slop. That feels intoxicating, like you've leveled up.
And yet, you know the rules. One wrong look, one overheard joke, one spill of wine across a noble's sleeve, and you're out. No cushion, no oops, just punishment. Here's the cruel irony. Your promotion is both the best and worst thing that can happen. It feels like freedom, but it's just a shorter leash tied to a higher post. You thought you were climbing stairs. Really? You were climbing a gallows ladder. And this is where the personal and the communal crash together. Because while you're chasing scraps of recognition, you still live in the same castle, shoulder to shoulder with other servants. They see your rise. Some envy it. Some protect you. Some plot against you. Remember those bonds we talked about? Friendships that fed you, rivals who cut you down? They don't disappear. They sharpen. The kitchen maid who once shared bread with you might cover when you slip. Or she might report you to save herself. That's the reality. Loyalty has limits when survival's on the line. So what do? You perform. You bow lower. You double-check the storeroom locks. You polish armor until you see your own face. You pour wine like it's holy water. You convince yourself you can survive this balancing act. But in the back of your head, the dread grows. Because history shows what happens. Servants who climbed too high were dragged down harder. Trusted ones got caught in intrigue, spies, informants, scapegoats. During tense times like the build-up to the 100 Years' War in the 14th century, castles turned into pressure cookers. Everyone was suspect. And servants, with their ears in every room, became both useful and expendable. And here's the final insult. You think you've found purpose, but it's still borrowed. The food isn't yours, the armor isn't yours, the power isn't yours. It's all theirs. Your victories exist only as long as they decide to let you keep them. So yes, you taste hope. You feel the thrill of being seen. You tell yourself this time it's different. But deep down, you know the truth. In a medieval castle, a servant's victory is almost always a setup, a rise before the inevitable fall. And the fall? You won't like the next bit.
You wake one morning to a sound that chills you to the bone. The castle bell, tolling fast, urgent. War. Siege. The Lord's enemies have gathered outside, and now the walls that kept you trapped are suddenly your prison. Your life, already grueling, just doubled in weight. Every servant is pressed into overdrive. You're hauling stones to patch crumbling battlements, lugging barrels of water up endless stairs, rationing out sacks of grain that are shrinking by the day. Forget the monotony of bread and pottage. Now even that's scarce. Hunger gnaws at your belly, and you catch yourself licking crumbs off your fingers like they're a feast. And here's the kicker. You don't just suffer. You're blamed if anything slips. If a torch goes out, if the kitchens run low on salt pork, if the stables stink so badly horses grow sick, it's your fault. Always yours. Let's not sugarcoat this. During medieval sieges, starvation wasn't a distant threat. It was the main weapon. Soldiers could sit outside your walls for months waiting for you to eat through your stores. You've probably heard the phrase siege warfare tossed around in history class. Sounds tactical, right? Reality? People inside literally starving to death, chewing on rats, sometimes worse. And when you're that hungry, mistakes happen. You drop a sack of grain. You miscount rations. You're exhausted, trembling, half delirious, and then comes punishment. Punishment in a castle isn't like modern go-to-your-room nonsense. It's public, it's humiliating, and it's designed to scare everyone else. Maybe they tie you to a post in the courtyard and lash you until your back's raw. Maybe they shove your head and hands into the stocks so children can throw dung at you. You can't defend yourself. You can't say, "I was tired." Nobody cares. Discipline comes swift, cruel, and merciless. And that terror lives in your bones. Every small task feels like a test you'll fail. Even scrubbing a floor, slip once, spill the bucket, and you're the day's entertainment. Mutilations wasn't just rumor. Some repeat offenders had ears cut off, noses slit. The message was clear. You are replaceable, but your shame will last forever. That's the external hell, but inside your head, that's another battlefield.
Fear starts to chew at you. You mistrust everyone because maybe they'll spy on you. Nobles used servants as informants, dangling scraps of favor in exchange for secrets. Suddenly, the boy who shared a blanket with you last winter might be the reason you get accused of stealing wine. You don't know who's lying, who's loyal, who's just trying to survive. And you're caught in the middle, paranoid, sleepless, waiting for the axe to drop. And sometimes it does. You hear the footsteps before dawn, the steward's voice calling your name. Your heart slams like a drum. Have you been accused? Did someone set you up? Will you hang by nightfall? This was real. Servants got dragged into political messes they barely understood. Maybe the Lord suspects a spy. Maybe a noblewoman whispered that you looked at her too long. Maybe someone stole a goblet and needed a scapegoat. And scapegoats, they're always chosen from the bottom. Execution isn't abstract here. You've seen it. Maybe you were forced to watch to learn the lesson. Hanging from a tree until the body sways like a broken doll. Or worse, breaking on the wheel, bones shattered one by one. Sometimes burning, the air thick with smoke and screams. These weren't hidden punishments, they were theater, power plays to keep everyone obedient. You stand in the crowd, shivering, thinking that could be me tomorrow. And maybe it is someone close to you, a friend, a mentor, the cook who taught you how to stir pottage without burning it, the stable hand who once gave you a stolen apple. Suddenly they're gone, dead from disease, whipped to death, or executed for something you know they didn't do. And that loss hits like a fist in your chest, because in this life, companionship is survival. Without it, the nights feel colder, the work heavier, the silence unbearable. You start breaking down inside, not just from hunger, not just from fear, but from hopelessness. You realize no matter how hard you work, how careful you are, how loyal you stay, it doesn't guarantee safety. You could be flawless, obedient, invisible, and still end up hanging by dawn. And here's the gut punch. You start to wonder if there's even a point.
That flicker of hope you once had? The thought of rising higher, of maybe gaining trust, of maybe making something of yourself, it starts to dim. You see the truth. In this system, you're not meant to rise. You're meant to serve until you break.
That's the real enemy. Not hunger, not the lash, not even the nobles. It's the system itself. A hierarchy so rigid it grinds you down until all you can do is shuffle forward and hope you're not next. And when that hope dies, that's worse than any whip. Because now you're not just trapped in stone walls, you're trapped in your own despair. You're living, breathing proof of what historians call the dark night of a servant's life. The point where all you can see is loss, no escape, no justice, no future. Just the endless grind of servitude, waiting for the day your luck runs out. And the worst part? You're not wrong. You are a castle's servant, not a knight, not a lady, not even a farmer with a patch of earth to call your own. You exist at the bottom rung inside these stone walls, and right now, those walls feel like a coffin. The siege drags on, food stores dwindle. You are ordered, the servant, to scrape the bottom of barrels, measure out scraps of barley like they're gold. Hunger claws through your belly every hour, but you're expected to smile, bow, and hand over meat and bread to the Lord's table. They eat roasted venison while you suck marrow from bones if you're lucky. And if you so much as lick the grease from the spit too greedily, that could be a whipping offense. The kitchen servant's nightmare was this: cooking for the masters when you haven't eaten in days. Imagine stirring a pot of pottage, the smell thick and savory, your head spinning from starvation. One slip of the hand, tasting when you're not allowed, and you're hauled out, shamed, maybe beaten bloody in front of everyone. Meanwhile, the stable hands are half dead from overwork. Horses are still fed better than you are, because horses are war machines, valuable assets, unlike servants. You shovel dung with an empty stomach, the stink in your nose, and a guard nearby to make sure you don't pocket oats. And then comes the breaking point: loss. It's the laundress who dies first. She's been your mentor since you entered service, a woman who showed you how to scrub stains with ashes, who whispered prayers with you on sleepless nights. Disease takes her quick. One day she's coughing by the wash tub, the next day her body's dumped outside the walls, unmarked. No priest, no farewell, just gone. That's when it sinks in. You're alone. Every bond you built, every fragile scrap of comfort, it can vanish overnight. The silence at night is worse now. Or once you whispered with her in the servants' quarters, now it's just the sound of rats scuttling. You, the servant, lie awake, wondering who will be next. Maybe the cook, maybe the stable boy, maybe you. But sometimes loss doesn't come by plague, it comes by betrayal. One evening, the steward calls you before the Lord. You're accused of theft, stealing bread or wine or cloth. You didn't do it, but that doesn't matter. Another servant likely planted the rumor to save themselves or earn favor. It could have been anyone. That's the poison of this world. The people you depend on for survival might sell you out to climb 1 inch higher. And here's the horror. You're guilty until proven innocent, which means punishment. Stocks in the courtyard, a lashing that leaves scars across your back, maybe even the noose if the Lord decides to make an example of you. And if you're spared execution, your reputation is dead anyway. Every eye in the servants' hall avoids yours. Nobody dares speak with you because guilt, even false guilt, sticks like tar. That's the social death of a castle servant. Worse than hunger, worse than pain, isolation. Because if no one will cover your shift, if no one slips you food, if no one speaks your name, you're already finished. And then comes the moment you never forget, the symbolic death of hope. It doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens when you finally understand you'll never rise above this. You'll never be more than a body filling a role. Maybe you once dreamed of saving enough coins to escape, marry, or buy freedom in a town. Now you see the truth. Every coin you touch belongs to the Lord. Every moment of your day is commanded by someone else. Your dreams weren't foolish. They were lies you told yourself to keep going.
This is why medieval chroniclers sometimes called servants living shadows. You move, you breathe, but you have no life of your own. And the cruelest part? That realization often hits at the exact moment you thought you were climbing. Maybe you'd been promoted, trusted to guard the pantry keys or serve wine directly at the Lord's table. You felt proud, hopeful. Then one mistake or one false whisper, and it all collapses. That's what historians call the false victory. You thought you'd made it, but it was smoke and ash. And now you, the servant, hit the rock bottom. Picture this. You stand in the courtyard as a friend, maybe the stable boy, maybe the cook's apprentice, is dragged to execution. Their crime? Barely real. Maybe they pocketed a slice of bread. Maybe they were just accused by someone higher. You watch their body hang limp, hear the crowd's silence, feel bile in your throat. And you know, if it happened to them, it could be you tomorrow. That's the darkest truth of servant life in the Middle Ages. Let's say England, 14th century, during the 100 Years' War, for context. You didn't control your destiny. Not your work, not your body, not even your life. One noble's whim could erase you. And here you stand, a servant in the shadows, stripped of allies, stripped of trust, stripped of hope. You're still breathing, but inside, part of you has already died.
As a medieval castle servant, this is the part nobody glamorizes. After the beatings, the starvation, the false accusations, you're left with the silence, the kind that eats at you in the dark. Your bed is straw in a damp corner, rats scuttling over your feet. The air stinks of piss from the latrine trench outside. This is where the dark night of the soul actually lives, not in heroic speeches, but in the muttered question you ask yourself under your breath. Why keep living like this? And here's the brutal truth of the 14th century. Let's ground this in England, circa 1370. Depression wasn't even recognized as an illness. If you broke down, they didn't call it trauma. They said it was sin. Melancholy was divine punishment, or worse, a demon whispering in your ear. The treatment, prayer, fasting, confession. No one asked about your pain. They told you to repent harder. That only makes the despair heavier. You can't complain. You can't cry too loudly. Even suffering is policed. But despair has a twisted gift. It forces reflection. You, the servant, lie awake thinking about injustice. The Lord feasts while you gnaw bones. Punishments fall harder on the poor than the powerful. And yet, somehow, you're still here, still working, still breathing. That realization hits like a cruel epiphany. You haven't broken yet. And then another thought. You remember how the kitchen boy slipped you a crust of bread last week when you were dizzy? Or how the old stable hand covered for you when you overslept after working double shifts? Those tiny mercies keep replaying in your head. That's the revelation. Survival isn't solo, it's collective. Historians argue over whether servants had agency. Dyer, 1980, Woolgar, 1988. But look closely and you see it. Whispered songs mocking lords, small acts of disobedience, secret sharing of food. That's where the real power lies. Not in overthrowing the system, you'd be executed by dawn, but in solidarity. So you make a decision, not to run away, they'd hunt you down, not to give up, that's death anyway, but to endure, smartly, to anticipate commands, to avoid punishments, to lean on allies, and fight despair with stubborn resilience. This is your quiet transformation. You stop dreaming of escape and start fighting to live inside the cage without letting it crush you. And that mental shift, that is your break into Act 3. Because once you realize strength lives in solidarity, in subtle endurance, the story isn't just about surviving servitude, it's about refusing to let servitude erase your humanity.
You're a castle servant, and now, after years of cracked hands, hollow stomachs, and silent obedience, you stand at the turning point. Not because you've toppled the system, you can't. Not because the Lord suddenly grew a conscience, he didn't. But because you've grown into something else entirely, a survivor with teeth. The first step, you stop pretending you're alone. Servants don't last solo, they last in packs. And once you realize that, you start watching the kitchen hands, the laundry girls, the stable boys. You start clocking the ones who slip food under the table, the ones who whisper warnings when punishment's coming, the ones who'd rather share bread than watch you starve. At first, it's quiet alliances. You give a nod in the hallway, slip a bucket of clean water closer to the cook, cover a stable hand's shift when he's limping from a beating. These little exchanges are your currency. They build trust the way bricks build a wall. Soon the invisible army of servants, the ones the lords barely notice, becomes a web, a kitchen guild, a laundry circle, a stable crew. Separate pieces, yes, but now connected. And that's power. Not the kind that wears crowns, but the kind that keeps you breathing. If you've ever had a shitty boss today and survived by venting with coworkers in the break room, you get it. Same thing, just more piss buckets. History proves it. In 1381, peasants and servants banded together in open revolt, storming manors and demanding justice. That's the extreme version. But even without torches and pitchforks, records show castle servants quietly uniting, sometimes negotiating better conditions, sometimes just resisting unfair treatment in numbers too big to punish all at once. It's not rebellion yet, but it's the blueprint. Now you've got your crew, you start working smarter. Every feast, every siege, every emergency, you move like a system. Kitchen boys warn laundry girls when guests arrive early, stable hands hide food in hay bales to keep it from being snatched, someone gets whipped, the word spreads fast, and allies quietly cover the missing workload so no one else gets targeted. You're not just surviving anymore, you're orchestrating.
Sometimes the plan is subtle sabotage. Delay a message just long enough that a cruel order fizzles. Swap one noble's goblet for another's when you know poison might be in play. Tell the Lord Steward the laundry's not dry yet, when in truth you're giving the scullery maid a chance to sleep after 3 nights straight awake. Each move is risky. Get caught and the lash waits. But every successful maneuver feels like winning a battle. Servants aren't just tools now, they're problem solvers, community defenders, even quiet guardians of justice. And when the castle is under attack, forget invisibility. You, the servant, are suddenly indispensable. You haul buckets to reinforce gates, you tend to bleeding soldiers, you ration food supplies with precision. You're no longer background, you're backbone. In moments of crisis, the castle doesn't run without you. That's the irony. The same people treated as expendable turn out to be irreplaceable. Kind of like every underpaid worker today who keeps the system alive while CEOs pretend otherwise. But just when it feels like you've built something steady, bam, reality hits. Maybe it's betrayal,
A fellow servant caves under threat and snitches on your secret bread-sharing circle. Suddenly, guards raid your quarters at midnight, drag people out for punishment. Maybe it's politics. The Lord grows suspicious of servant unity and cracks down, splitting up your alliances, reassigning workers to different towers, deliberately breaking bonds. Maybe it's pure bad luck. A plague outbreak sweeps through and half of your strongest allies die within weeks. Whatever the form, the message is clear. Solidarity is fragile, survival is temporary, and every victory teeters on the edge of collapse. The floor caves beneath you. All those whispered songs, shared loaths, stolen moments of triumph, they feel pointless when one order from above can erase them. And in that moment, lying bruised on straw again, you wonder, what's the point? Why fight when the system always wins? This is where most servants break, and maybe a part of you does too, but not all of you, because by now you're built something deeper than fear, resilience. You've been through too much to collapse completely. Every scar on your back, every blister on your palm, every hunger pang you've outlasted, they've turned you into something the Lords will never understand. Tougher, smarter, harder to kill. And even when betrayal stings, you remember the small mercies that never stopped. The kitchen girl who still slipped you broth when you were sick. The stable hand who patched your shoes with scraps. You realize that while power can crush individuals, it can't fully kill solidarity. Because solidarity isn't one big rebellion, it's hundreds of tiny ones stitched together like armor.
That's the lesson of your life. Survival isn't glamorous, but it's defiance. Endurance itself is a rebellion. So you dig down and make a new plan, not the dream of escape, not the fantasy of freedom, but the realistic, razor-sharp choice you will live on your terms, even inside the cage. Now you rise again, but different, not invisible, not naive, transformed. The Lord may never call you equal, but He relies on you now more than He admits. Maybe you're recognized with slightly better quarters, or a small wage increase, or the responsibility of overseeing younger servants. Maybe nothing official changes, but when you walk through the kitchens, people nod with quiet respect. You've become the one who others look to, the one who knows how to bend the system without breaking it. That's dignity, not given, but taken. And even if outwardly you're still a servant, inwardly you're more. You've gone from expendable laborer to indispensable human. Your alliances still live, your resilience still pulses, and most importantly, you carry a mindset the system can't steal. You matter, even when the Lords don't see it. That's the final transformation. You started as raw, obedient muscle. You became a survivor, a strategist, a quiet leader. You forged identity inside oppression, and that makes you untouchable in ways no whip can erase. Picture it. Years ago, you, the castle servant, were hunched in the dark, scrubbing piss with bleeding hands, half-starved, praying just to see sunrise. Now you still scrub floors, still answer bells, still live within stone walls that aren't yours. But when you walk through the servants' hall, people glance at you differently. The kitchen boy straightens when you enter. The laundry girls hush their arguments until you nod. The stable hand passes you an apple without a word. You've become the servant who others trust, the one who endured everything and somehow came out sharper. Not free, but not broken. And in a world designed to erase you, that's victory. Because your humanity survived, and that, quiet, stubborn, and unyielding, is the one thing the castle could never take. That's your life as a medieval castle servant. Not glamorous, not knightly, not romantic, brutal, raw, but survivable if you knew how to play the game. And maybe that's the hidden punchline of history. The people who looked powerless weren't powerless at all. They were surviving,
resisting and shaping the castle in ways the lords could never see. And now you know you wouldn't last as a servant unless you learned the same lesson. Endurance is rebellion.